welcome to the Facebook Live and Instagram Live in my mini-series of mini harp lessons. I'm Zuzanna, I'm harp teacher based in Edinburgh. Today I'm broadcasting from London because I'm working here this week, so last few weeks were in all sorts of places. But good to see you here. Let me know if you can see and hear me alright, because it's new place, new broadband, so we need to check if everything is fine. Today I'm going to play a piece which I think all my students know. I think if you've ever been studying with me, you have definitely played that piece, but this is because it's a really great piece, and I think despite it being in one exam books, not many people may know it, so that will come in just a second. Let me know. Oh, I can see Magda coming, hello. I hope we will have some viewers on Instagram as well who will tell me if everything is fine. Last week you said that the sound quality was better on Instagram. Let's see what it's like this week. So, before the famous piece, famous among my students at least, some info and some questions to you. We're halfway through what was going to be a series of 10 lives. We've done 5 so far, and including this one, we've got 5 to go. And I was just wondering, what are your, if you have any comments, if you have any feedback. I think I would like to keep that series going on. Let me know if you think that's a good idea. And I think having it every week at the same time as it is, it's quite a nice rhythm. But one idea that I had is to change it slightly, and instead of presenting one piece every week, most of these pieces will take you more than a week to learn, and maybe it's a bit too much to have new piece in every week. Of course, you may not like every single piece, you may not want to learn every single piece, but still maybe it is a bit too much. So I thought maybe instead of presenting a piece with a complete practice recipe, it will be nicer and more useful to present one chosen aspect of harp playing. It can be technical aspects such as playing scales, using the position of the thumb, placing levers, pedals. It can be some musical aspects, dynamics and things like that, and I could then show you either examples from different pieces or some exercises how to practice that. And I thought with this I could give you a recipe how to practice one chosen aspect for a whole week, giving you tiny bits of tasks to do every day, and then having it done after a whole week. So let me know how you like that. Maybe I could still present a new piece once a month, for example, but yeah, let me know what would be most useful. I'm keen to get to know more pieces that could be played on the harp. Or would you like to have some more detailed advice on how to practice and to get better, and like something which is very actionable and you can do straight away between one live and the other, and then maybe in the next one you could ask me some questions. Also, I was thinking that maybe Facebook fan page is not the best place. This is about Facebook. It can of course stay on Instagram, but I thought maybe what would be better than a Facebook fan page is actually creating a Facebook group for students who are learning to play the harp, because the advantages of the Facebook groups, the stuff that Facebook gives you when you're in a group, is that you can ask a question, you can create a post yourself, whilst on my fan page you can't really do that. You would have to comment on one of the lives, and then I would have to find that question to answer it. But you could create posts and have discussion. You will not only hear from me, but you also hear from other harp players who might have struggled with similar problems, or might give you some inspiration. So I think that's one nice thing. And also when it's smaller group, here I've got 300 followers. I know you're not all tuning in, but it feels like I'm speaking to a large group of people, while in a Facebook group that could be a very small community, and we all know each other, we would all know each other, and that might have been maybe just nicer to be with people who have similar goals and aims playing the harp. Let me just check your comments. Hi Magda, good to see you too. And hey, hi the other Magda. Magda on Instagram and the other Magda on Facebook. Okay. So, let me just check my notes. I have an impression that I always forget to say something, so that's why I'm checking on that. Yes, so yeah. Okay, let's jump to the piece then, and I'll try to tell you a bit more why I think it's such a great piece to play for beginners. The title of the piece is Skaters, and it comes from the book Harping On, Volume 1, the first book by Fiona Clifton-Welker. You may know that piece because because one of the pieces from the book is Charlotte in Spring, which is exam piece for grade 1 ABRSM. But I think this book has many great pieces, and just before Charlotte there is that piece, which I think is a tiny bit easier than the exam piece. So I would call it sort of maybe pre-grade 1 level, something which you asked to hear last week. The piece doesn't have any lever changes, and the range is very small, so the lowest note that you're playing is just the C below the middle C. So as long as you've got one more octave below the middle C, you're fine. And at the top, the highest note is F, the high F, so an octave and a bit above the middle C. So that's great if you have a smaller harp. I think 27 strings, 22 strings might be even fine for that piece, as long as you've got that bottom C. About the difficulty level, I think you can play it definitely within your first year of playing. Depending how well you read music, you will be able to learn this piece sooner or later. But I'm going to explain why, despite being a whole page long, this piece is not so difficult, why there are certain patterns repeated, and what makes it easier and how to learn it faster. Okay, so let me know if I need to repeat anything. I will put the link to the shop where you can buy the book, so you can all see the book. And I think now I'm just going to play the piece. So this is Skaters by Fiona Clifton-Welker. Just let me move the music stand. That's it. So, I know that you can't see the music, but the way it's organized on the page makes it actually quite easy to learn, because it's one page with 4 lines, and the 4 lines are, each line is one phrase, one musical phrase. So for example, first line is that phrase. A phrase is like a musical sentence, and we've got the first line and first sentence, and it's especially helpful when you look at how the left hand is organized. Left hand, as you can see, plays the same 3-finger pattern all the time. It's 3 fingers on different strings, but it's always the same spacing between 3rd finger, 2nd and the thumb. And for those of you who have some knowledge of the music theory, you will be able to tell that this is arpeggio in root position. So that's the easy thing about the left hand, that it's repeating the same pattern. You just need to locate it on the harp. In the 1st, 2nd and 3rd line, left hand is repeating that chord twice, G major chord, and then going to D major chord and repeating it twice again. And then that's the same in the 2nd line and in the 3rd line. So left hand, I would recommend starting from the left hand, because you can get it out of the way, if I can say so, really quickly. Then the last line is slightly different, because we've got 4 different chords. The chords change in every bar, so you would need to spend a bit more time practicing that 4th line of the left hand. And what I would do with the left hand here is first practice it with just placing and showing your fingers where they are going. So this is what happens in the first line. You play the same chord twice and then you move down 4 steps. And then especially it's important to show your left hand what happens in the last line. So you're starting with E minor chord, moving 2 steps down, 1 step up, and back to the same chord as we used at the beginning. And it's quite important that you keep in mind that it's exactly the same space, that nothing changes in the setup of the fingers, that each finger has a string between we place another finger. So left hand done. Then let's move on to the right hand. With the right hand, I think it's quite important, once you know where the notes are, you can locate the notes and you can decide which fingers you're playing with, is to make sure that you're counting out loud, because we've got quite a big gaps between each little phrase of the right hand, and with the left hand it will be quite easy to fit it in, because left hand has much more clear rhythm and it's got just more notes. But it would be really good if you could count 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 so it's all very organized, and you learn the melody as it is from the very start. So once you're done with the right hand, once you've practiced all the 4 lines of the piece with right hand on its own, with left hand on its own, I would start putting them together. And when you practice, you probably will want to start your practice from line 4, putting hands together, because that's the most difficult one, because left hand is changing all the time and right hand has something quite different. But when you're learning that for the first time, I would start from the easiest line, which is line 1, because that shows you the pattern of the piece, and then line 4 is kind of similar patterns but more complex. So I would start from the easier and simpler one and then move on to the more advanced one. So when playing the first line, each line has 4 bars and they divide neatly 2 plus 2. It's the first 2 bars are. So this is where left hand stays the same. Right hand just plays 2 notes which are connected, thumb and second finger, so nothing moves here. As soon as you've got your hands on the string, the only thing that you need to do is replacing left hand on the same strings that you had before. Okay, and then the second line is quite similar pattern, just on different strings. Left hand plays, right hand 2 notes connected, left hand comes back on the same strings. So I would practice 2 bars at a time, the first one and then the second one. And then when it comes to putting them together, what can be quite tricky is just moving your hands to different strings. And the way I recommend this for my students to practice first is place the fingers on all the strings that you need for the first and second bar, and then move your right hand to where it needs to be for the second half of the line, and move your left hand when it needs to be. So they learn the geography of the harp, they know how far do they need to go. At first I would start with moving right hand first, because right hand is the one which has much more time, so you will move right hand first and then move the left hand, because left hand has very little time to move. And then place them together and move them together to the next beat. Yeah, so you can do that without almost thinking, it becomes semi-automatic. And then you can play that as chords if you want. That's also helpful. Make sure you articulate well, you close your fingers. But after that short exercise in placing, you will probably be fine playing that hands together. Just tell to yourself while you play, your left hand comes back to the same string, your right hand moves here, and it's good if your right hand moves as soon as it can, even while the left hand is still playing, because then the right hand is on and you can divide, you can give your whole attention to what the left hand needs to do with moving. And then you're on and you can just play the second line, the second half of the bar. Then after you're done with the first line, I would move to the third one. Let me know if anything is unclear. Maybe I'm talking a bit too fast, but if you need me to repeat anything, then just post a comment and tell me if I'm going too fast. So first line done, then I would move to the third line out of 3, because it's actually really, really similar to the first line. In fact, Left hand is identical, still those two chords repeated. And then right hand, the beginning is exactly the same as the first line. And then just the last two notes of the bar, of the last two bars change. So I would do the same thing. Maybe start directly from practicing the second half of the line, which is the different one, and then practice placing. Move your right hand first, it needs to jump a bit higher, and then move your left hand, and then you can play that as chords, and then that will be much easier to organize. Just remind your right hand that it needs to move as soon as it can to the next note. Okay, then let's go back to the second line, which is a tiny bit complicated because here we've got the right hand line in the same place as the left hand, just with a few more notes. But then we have a connecting little phrase from the right hand. So we don't have as neat divide in the half, we have actually right hand connecting the two halves. But knowing your first and third line, you can now do exactly the same thing, practice placing. So start with where the right hand and left hand starts at the beginning. Then you move your right hand together with the left hand for that beat in the half. And then you move your right hand again. Yeah, so that goes like that. And then by that point you move your right hand, move your left hand, move right hand again. Yeah, and then you're fine playing it together as long as you remind your left hand that it repeats the same pattern twice and that the right hand needs to move as soon as it can to the next beat. And you can practice also placing with hands separately. You can practice moving just the left hand, just touching the strings that you need to go on, and same with the right hand. Place it on the first group, place it on the second group. You may want to notice that here the thumb moves just a string down, second finger moves a string down, and you get rid of the third finger. These are those other tiny details that you might want to look at when you play. And then right hand, same pattern, same distance between the strings, just shifts 2 steps down. That's also really useful to see how far are you actually moving. It feels like there's lots of jumping around, but actually you're staying really close to where you've been playing before. Okay, we've done the first 3 lines, and now we've got line 4, which I told you already that is the most challenging one. I would start again with the left hand just to remind yourself where is it going. It's different chord in each bar, but it's still the same pattern and same distance. So as long as you remember that your hand needs to keep the same shape, you just need to find the first note of each chord with your third finger. So we start with E, then we go 2 strings down to C, 1 string up to D, and then how many? 4 steps up to G, to the chord that we started at the beginning. So once that's done, practice the right hand, which has a few more notes connected. That's easy, all 3 fingers under one line, and then you need to remember that second finger after you play goes back to be placed on G, and then that's the end of the song. And then again, I will divide that 4th line in halves because there is a neat break in the middle. We've got first half, and at this point both hands come off, so you will need to practice again moving them before you go on to the second half, which is. So I will again do first placing within the first half of the bar. Here your right hand is on 3 fingers and it just goes down, so you don't need to be too concerned with that. So just moving left hand to the next beat, yeah? Just practicing that your left hand jumps to the right beat. You can do the same within the second line. Your right hand is holding on, just move second finger down, and the left hand is the one jumping up. And then putting those two together, what I would do is keep your right hand on the same notes as it is at the beginning. Your left hand is to go on the last chord before the change, before both hands come off. And then moving your left hand 1 step up, which is what happens between the lines, and moving your right hand to A and B. And doing that again 1 more time, you can first do right hand, then left hand, put them back, then do first left hand, then right hand, put them back again, then try doing that together. And then you can start playing from the second bar, which will be right hand just playing one note, And the right hand moves straight away to the next two notes. You played with the third finger, and second and thumb go just to one string up. So that's that. Right hand moves, and then the left hand moves as well, one step back. And you're set for the second half of the line. And then moving left hand. Yeah? So, once you're familiar with all the 4 lines, I would recommend that you start your practice from the 4th line. And I would recommend that you start always from revising the left hand, those chords which are very different from the beginning. And you can tell to yourself, I'm going 2 steps down to C, to the red string, then 1 step up to D, and then all the way back to the chord I know from the beginning. That's very helpful. And then revising right hand on its own, so you're quite sure where that thumb goes here. That's quite crucial. Then putting first half together, second half together, both of them, and then going to the first, second, third line should be a pleasure by that point. I wonder if there's anything else to say here. Yeah, and why I think that piece is really great, because it's very gentle chords in placing, I think. I think it really well explains to the students what you need to think of when playing the harp, that there's quite a lot of planning in terms of where fingers end up geographically on the harp, and that you need to think actively, when does your right hand move? For example, at the beginning, right hand moves before the left hand, then you move the left hand. Because very often we arrive at the end of the bar and then we are lost because we didn't think in advance, we didn't plan in advance where the hands are going. So that piece is really good because there are not too many notes and there's quite a lot of space for you to think and to remember when you need to move your hand and move it straight away. If you want, you can write in the spaces where the right hand is not playing much, in the rest of the right hand you can write something like plays or an exclamation mark. That's quite a good reminder for your right hand to move to where it needs to be. Same at the end of the lines. The right hand has quite a bit of space. At the end of the first line, for example, we end up with... Sorry, that was third line actually. But right hand finger is playing at the beginning of the last bar, and then try to move it as soon as you can to the next line, which is also quite funny for us. We think, our brain thinks that end of the line is end of the something, and then it doesn't think of what happens later. So try to shift your gaze to the beginning of the next line and already have that right hand, as soon as it's done, being positioned for the next beat, which is actually just moving your thumb one string down. That's also worth noticing what happens between the lines. So next stage, after you're quite sure of the fourth, third, second line, first line, is putting two lines at a time together and noticing what happens between the lines, which finger moves where, which hand moves first, which one needs to wait, practicing them without playing, just moving them on the harp. I think that's very useful when you don't have to worry about them. Which one, like that panic where they don't know where to go. I'm just going to quickly check your comments again. Hi to everyone who joined, thank you for watching. Thomas says he's getting a quick coffee. Great. I'm actually using Thomas' harp today, so yeah, thanks for watching despite being out. Yeah, so that was the Skaters. I really recommend you the whole book by Fiona. It's really, really good. Not only the exam piece, but all the pieces are in different sort of order. This one is the one of the easiest one, but I think it's really cute. You can learn it quite fast, but you can practice lots of different aspects of harp playing, including the position of when playing three fingers, good practice for arpeggios in the left hand, for root position arpeggios, good practice for placing of the right hand as well, remembering about placing and fingering. Yeah, I think it's really good to get you started after a long break, or as one of the pieces in the first weeks that you play the harp. Yeah, as a piece to practice memorizing and so on. So that will be it for today. I see you next week at the same time. Let me know when you have time to think about whether you would like me to carry on presenting one single piece of music as I do at the moment, with a short practice recipe for different tricky spots and so on, Or would you prefer me to focus on one chosen aspect of harp playing and give you homework to practice over a week, something you can do within the course of a week? Because of course a piece may sometimes take a bit longer. And also let me know what you think about the idea of closed Facebook groups for students, where you could ask questions, where I would keep posting these videos, where you can also post your own videos, where it becomes a bit more like a community. Because I think I'm keen to find a slightly better place than my Facebook fan page. Of course, I will carry on Instagram as I'm doing, but I'm thinking about creating a place where we can have even more discussion about harp and getting to know pieces, getting to know different practice techniques, and so on. Right, thank you so much for coming. Time to go, and see you next week.